In the ever-dramatic world of the young and the restless, secrets rarely stay hidden for long. But sometimes, the truth waits until the exact moment it can cause the most devastation. And that moment is finally here. The relationship between Kyle Abbott and Claire Newman has been one of the most talked about developments in Genoa City recently. What began as a fragile connection slowly evolved into something deeper, a chance for both of them to start over after past heartbreaks. But in true Genoa City fashion, peace never lasts. Rumors now suggest that Kyle is about to learn a shocking truth. Claire may have betrayed him with the mysterious newcomer Holden Novak, and when the truth finally explodes into the open, it could destroy everything. When Claire Newman first arrived in Genoa City, her presence was surrounded by mystery. She was intelligent, poised, and determined to prove herself worthy of the Newman legacy. But she also carried emotional scars. Kyle, on the other hand, had just endured yet another painful chapter in his complicated romantic history. His marriage with Summer had left deep emotional wounds, and the constant pressure from the Abbott family had pushed him to reconsider what he truly wanted in life. When Kyle and Claire crossed paths, something unexpected happened. They understood each other. Both were trying to escape the weight of their powerful families. Both wanted to define themselves outside the expectations of the Abbott and Newman dynasties. Their connection started quietly. Long conversations, shared frustrations, and a mutual understanding that neither had felt before. But while Kyle believed their bond was growing stronger, Claire was hiding something. Genoa City has seen its fair share of outsiders, but Holden Novak quickly stood out. Charming, confident, and unpredictable, Holden had a way of inserting himself into situations where he didn't belong. At first, no one paid much attention to him, but Claire did. Sources suggest Claire and Holden may have had a history before she ever arrived in Genoa City. Whether it was a past relationship or a complicated friendship remains unclear. But what's certain is that their connection never truly ended. Whenever Holden appeared near Claire, something in her demeanor changed. She became nervous, secretive, guarded. Kyle noticed these subtle shifts but dismissed them as stress from family pressures. That decision may prove to be the biggest mistake of his life. The moment that could shatter Kyle's world reportedly occurred during a private event in Genoa City. While Kyle believed Claire was working late on a Newman project, she was allegedly meeting Holden. What started as a conversation between two people with unresolved history may have quickly escalated into something far more intimate. Whether the encounter was emotional, physical, or both remains uncertain. But one thing is clear. Claire kept it a secret. And secrets in Genoa City never stay buried. Looking back, the signs were there. Claire suddenly became distant. She began canceling plans with Kyle. Her phone buzzed late at night with messages she refused to explain. Kyle tried to convince himself he was overthinking. After all, trust is essential in any relationship. But Kyle's instincts were trying to warn him. And soon, the truth will become impossible to ignore. In classic Young and the Restless fashion, the revelation doesn't come directly from Claire. Instead, another character may stumble upon the secret. Some rumors suggest that Summer Newman could play a crucial role in exposing the truth. Summer has always had a complicated relationship with Kyle. Despite their divorce, emotions between them never fully disappeared. If Summer discovers evidence of Claire and Holden's betrayal, she could face a difficult decision: protect Kyle from the pain, or reveal the truth and destroy his relationship. Given Summer's history, the temptation to expose Claire might be impossible to resist. When Kyle finally learns the truth, it won't happen quietly. The moment will reportedly explode in one of Genoa City's most emotional confrontations. Kyle, known for his passionate temper, will demand answers. Claire will try to explain. Holden may even attempt to justify his role. But for Kyle, the betrayal cuts too deep. He believed Claire was different. He believed she was honest. Finding out she kept such a massive secret could shatter his ability to trust anyone again. Of course, every story has two sides. Claire may insist the situation is far more complicated than it appears. She could argue that her past with Holden wasn't fully resolved when she started seeing Kyle. Or she might claim that the encounter was a mistake, a moment of weakness during a period of emotional confusion. But the biggest question remains: why didn't she tell Kyle the truth? For Kyle, the secrecy may hurt more than the betrayal itself. When news of Claire's actions spreads through the Newman family, the fallout will be enormous. Members of the powerful dynasty have always been protective of their reputation. If Claire's scandal becomes public, it could reflect poorly on the entire Newman name. Some family members might defend her. Others may see her actions as reckless and irresponsible. The pressure from within the Newman family could push Claire into an even more desperate emotional state. Meanwhile, the Abbott family will rally around Kyle. Figures like Jack Abbott have always prioritized protecting the family legacy. Jack has seen Kyle endure heartbreak before, and he may view Claire's betrayal as proof that Kyle deserves better. Jack's reaction could escalate tensions between the Abbott and Newman families once again. And if there's one thing Genoa City knows well, it's that family rivalries rarely end peacefully. The biggest mystery may actually revolve around Holden. Did he genuinely care about Claire? Or was he manipulating her from the beginning? Some theories suggest Holden could be pursuing a hidden agenda tied to the Newman Empire. If his involvement with Claire was strategic rather than romantic, the betrayal might be even darker than it first appears. For Kyle, this discovery could trigger a dramatic transformation. Throughout his life, he has struggled to escape the shadow of his family's expectations. Now, another romantic betrayal could push him toward a darker path. Kyle may decide to focus entirely on business, or he might seek revenge against the people who hurt him. Either way, the man who emerges from this scandal may not resemble the Kyle viewers once knew. Despite the heartbreak, redemption is always possible in Genoa City. Claire may genuinely regret her actions. If she truly loves Kyle, she might fight to earn his forgiveness. But trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to rebuild, and Kyle may not be ready to forgive anytime soon. As the storyline unfolds, several possibilities remain on the table. Kyle completely cuts Claire out of his life. Claire exposes Holden's hidden agenda. Summer and Kyle grow closer again. A new Abbott-Newman feud erupts. Whatever happens, one thing is certain: Genoa City is heading toward another emotional explosion. Soap opera fans love dramatic betrayals, but this storyline resonates because of the emotional stakes. Kyle isn't just losing a relationship, he's losing the belief that he finally found someone he could trust. For Claire, the situation is equally devastating. The storm in Genoa City had only just begun. After the shocking revelation that Claire Newman secretly met with Holden Novak, the fragile world of Kyle Abbott began to crumble. But the truth Kyle initially heard was only the surface of something far more devastating. And the next revelations would shake not only Kyle's heart, but the entire Newman and Abbott dynasties. The truth finally exploded one evening at Society, Genoa City's favorite gathering spot. Kyle arrived after receiving a mysterious message that simply said, "You deserve to know the truth about Claire." At first he thought it was a cruel prank, but the moment he stepped inside the restaurant, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Claire was sitting at a quiet corner table, and across from her was Holden. They weren't arguing. They weren't discussing business. They were sitting close together, too close. Kyle froze. For a moment, he hoped there was an innocent explanation. But when Claire reached out and touched Holden's hand, that hope shattered instantly. Kyle didn't think. He walked straight toward the table, his anger building with every step. "Claire," he said sharply. Her face went pale the moment she saw him. "Kyle, this isn't what it looks like." That sentence only made things worse. Holden leaned back in his chair, surprisingly calm. "Well," Holden said slowly, "this is awkward." Kyle's fists clenched. "You think this is funny?" Holden raised an eyebrow. "I think you're jumping to conclusions." But Kyle wasn't interested in Holden's explanations. His eyes were locked on Claire. "How long?" Kyle demanded. Claire looked terrified. "Kyle, please, let me explain." But Kyle's voice grew louder. "How long?" The entire restaurant went silent. Every guest turned to watch the confrontation unfold. Claire's voice trembled. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Those words were all Kyle needed to hear. Outside the restaurant, Claire finally broke down. Tears streamed down her face as she tried to explain everything. "It started before you and I got serious," she admitted. Kyle stared at her in disbelief. "You mean Holden?" Claire nodded slowly. "He and we had a complicated past." Kyle laughed bitterly. "Complicated past?" "Claire, you were holding his hand tonight." She shook her head desperately. "That didn't mean anything." But Kyle's anger exploded. "Then why didn't you tell me about him?" Claire couldn't answer immediately, and that silence told Kyle everything. Just when the situation couldn't get worse, Holden stepped outside. But he didn't look guilty. In fact, he looked almost amused. "Kyle deserves the full story," Holden said calmly. Claire's eyes widened in panic. "No, Holden, don't!" But Holden ignored her. "You see," he said, "Claire and I didn't just have a past." Kyle's jaw tightened. "What are you talking about?" Holden smirked slightly. "We were together longer than you think." Claire shook her head violently. "That's not fair, Holden." But the damage was already done. Kyle felt like the ground beneath him had disappeared. Claire finally admitted something she had been hiding for months. When she first arrived in Genoa City, she thought her relationship with Holden was over. She believed she had closed that chapter of her life. But Holden followed her, and when he reappeared, old emotions resurfaced. Not because she loved him, but because he knew things about her past that no one else did. Things that could destroy her reputation inside the Newman family. Kyle looked stunned. "So you kept seeing him because he was blackmailing you?" Claire hesitated. "Not exactly." That hesitation was devastating. For Kyle, the truth was simply too much. He had spent months believing Claire was the one person in his life who was completely honest with him. Now everything felt like a lie. "I trusted you," Kyle said quietly. Claire's voice broke. "I know. And you still met him behind my back." "It wasn't like that." Kyle shook his head. "No, it was worse." Without another word, Kyle walked away. Claire collapsed onto a nearby bench crying, but the heartbreak in Genoa City was far from over. Meanwhile, another pair of eyes had witnessed part of the confrontation. Summer Newman. Summer had always struggled with the end of her marriage to Kyle, and while she never openly admitted it, a part of her still hoped they might find their way back to each other someday. Seeing Kyle devastated stirred something inside her: concern, sympathy, and maybe a second chance. When Summer approached Kyle later that evening, she saw a side of him she hadn't seen in a long time. He looked completely broken. "Kyle," Summer said softly, but Kyle barely looked at her. "I should have known better," he muttered. Summer frowned. "Known better about what?" Kyle's voice was filled with bitterness. "Believing someone like Claire could actually be honest." Summer didn't defend Claire. Instead, she simply sat beside him. "You didn't deserve that," she said. Those words meant more to Kyle than she realized. For the first time that night, he didn't feel completely alone. It didn't take long for news of the scandal to reach the Abbott mansion. Jack Abbott was furious, not just at Claire, but at the situation Kyle had been dragged into. Jack had always worried that Kyle's emotional decisions would leave him vulnerable, and now those fears seemed justified. "If this Holden man hurt my son," Jack said coldly, "he's going to regret it." But Kyle surprised everyone. "This isn't your fight, Dad." Jack looked confused. "It is if someone betrayed you." Kyle's eyes hardened. "No, this one's mine." While Kyle tried to process the betrayal, Claire faced a storm of her own. The Newman family demanded answers. Her secret meetings with Holden had created serious concerns about loyalty and judgment. Some family members believed she had endangered their reputation. Others feared Holden might have been using Claire to gain access to Newman business secrets. Claire tried to defend herself, but every explanation sounded weaker than the last. And deep down, she knew she had made a terrible mistake. As the dust began to settle, a new theory started spreading through Genoa City. What if Holden's interest in Claire wasn't romantic at all? What if his real goal was something much bigger? Some insiders began to suspect Holden had been targeting the Newman family from the beginning. If that was true, Claire might have been manipulated. But even if Holden was the mastermind, Claire still chose to keep the secret, and that choice could cost her everything. In the days following the scandal, Kyle began to change. The heartbreak that once defined him started turning into cold determination. Instead of chasing love, Kyle focused on power. He buried himself in Abbott business strategy, late-night meetings, aggressive decisions, calculated risks. Some people in Genoa City began to wonder if Kyle was becoming someone very different from the man they once knew. But one question remained unanswered. Did Claire truly betray Kyle? Or was she just another victim of Holden Novak's dangerous game? Because if Holden's secrets are even darker than anyone suspects, then the biggest shock in Genoa City might still be coming. The fallout from the confrontation at society continued to ripple across Genoa City. While Kyle Abbott tried to bury his pain behind work and anger, the truth about Claire Newman and Holden Novak was far from fully revealed. In fact, the most heartbreaking revelation was about to come from someone Kyle loved more than anyone else, his young son, Harrison Abbott. And when Harrison finally spoke up, the emotional explosion that followed would shake everyone who witnessed it. Days passed after Kyle walked away from Claire outside society. At first, he avoided everyone. Friends tried to reach him, family members offered support, but Kyle kept his distance. Inside the Abbott mansion, Jack Abbott watched his son closely. Jack had seen Kyle go through heartbreak before, but something about this time felt different. Kyle wasn't just hurt. He was shutting down emotionally. "Talk to me," Jack urged one evening. Kyle shook his head. "There's nothing to talk about." Jack sighed. "Claire betrayed you? Of course there's something to talk about." Kyle's jaw tightened. "It's over. That's all that matters." But Jack knew Kyle well enough to see the truth. It wasn't over at all. Kyle was still trying to understand what had really happened, and the biggest answers were still missing. Meanwhile, Claire was drowning in regret. She replayed the moment Kyle walked away again and again in her mind. Every time she imagined what she should have said differently, what she should have done. But the damage was already done. Still, Claire refused to give up. One afternoon, she arrived at the Abbott mansion hoping to see Kyle, but when the door opened, she found someone else standing there. Harrison. The young boy looked up at her with confusion. "Claire?" His innocent voice nearly broke her heart. "Hi, Harrison," she said softly. But before she could say another word, Kyle appeared behind him. The moment he saw Claire, his expression turned cold. "You shouldn't be here." Claire tried to stay calm. "Kyle, please, I just want to talk." But Kyle shook his head. "There's nothing left to say." The tension between them filled the room. Harrison looked back and forth between the two adults, sensing something was wrong. "Daddy, why are you mad at Claire?" Kyle hesitated. He didn't want his son caught in the middle of adult drama. But before he could answer, Harrison said something unexpected. "I saw Claire with that other man." The room went completely silent. Kyle's eyes widened. "What did you say?" Claire's face turned pale. "Harrison," she whispered, but the boy continued innocently. "They were talking in the park last week." Kyle slowly turned toward Claire. "You told me the last time you saw Holden was at society." Claire looked panicked. That's not what it looked like. But Harrison interrupted again. They were hugging. The words felt like a punch to Kyle's chest. He had already believed Claire betrayed him, but hearing confirmation from his own son made the situation even more painful. You lied to me again, Kyle said quietly. Claire shook her head desperately. Kyle, please, let me explain. But Kyle's anger exploded. You had another meeting with him. It wasn't like that. Then what was it? Claire struggled to find the right words, because the truth was messy. And the longer she hesitated, the worse it looked. Claire finally admitted something she hadn't told anyone. The meeting in the park wasn't romantic. It was a confrontation. Holden had been pressuring her, threatening to reveal secrets about her past if she refused to cooperate with him. He wanted information about the Newman family, Claire confessed. Kyle stared at her. You expect me to believe that? Claire nodded urgently. I was trying to stop him. But Kyle's voice turned bitter. So, instead of telling me the truth, you met him in secret. Claire's eyes filled with tears. I didn't want to drag you into his mess. Kyle laughed angrily. You already did. The argument escalated quickly. Emotions that had been building for days finally erupted. Kyle stepped closer to Claire. You had so many chances to be honest with me, Claire whispered. I was scared. Kyle shook his head. No, you just didn't trust me. Claire reached for his hand. Kyle, I love you. But Kyle pulled away instantly. Don't say that. The rejection hit Claire like a knife, because deep down she knew she might have already lost him forever. As the argument continued, neither adult noticed Harrison quietly standing nearby, until he suddenly began to cry. Stop fighting! Both Kyle and Claire froze. Harrison wiped his tears. I liked it when you were happy. His small voice carried enormous sadness, and for a moment, the anger in the room faded. Kyle knelt down beside his son. It's okay, buddy. But Harrison shook his head. No, it's not. He looked at Claire. Are you going away? Claire's heart shattered. I don't know. Later that evening, Summer Newman arrived at the Abbott mansion. She had heard about the confrontation. When she saw Kyle sitting alone in the living room, she immediately noticed the exhaustion on his face. You look terrible, she said gently. Kyle sighed. Thanks. Summer sat beside him. You loved her. Kyle didn't deny it. That's what makes this worse. Summer paused before speaking again. You know, sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones we trusted the most. Kyle looked at her. And you're saying that from experience? Summer gave a sad smile. Obviously. For the first time in days, Kyle felt someone truly understood his pain. Meanwhile, Claire returned to her apartment feeling completely alone. She had lost Kyle's trust. The Newman family was questioning her judgment, and Holden was still out there somewhere, watching everything unfold. But Claire's biggest fear was something else entirely. What if Holden wasn't finished with her yet? Because if he still held secrets about her past, then the nightmare might only be beginning. Elsewhere in Genoa City, Holden Novak sat quietly at a bar, checking his phone. A slow smile appeared on his face. Phase 1 complete, he muttered. Whatever Holden's real plan was, Kyle and Claire's broken relationship might only be the first step. And if his true objective involved the Newman Empire, then Genoa City was about to face a much bigger storm.